The rain had just begun when a black sedan stopped quietly across the street from the towering glass building of Carter Global Holdings. People hurried past with umbrellas, expensive coats, and coffee cups in hand. Nobody noticed the woman stepping out of the car. She wore a simple gray coat, low heels, and carried an old leather handbag. No bodyguards, no assistant, no jewelry flashy enough to announce wealth. And that was exactly how Vanessa Carter preferred it. At 39 years old, Vanessa was one of the youngest black billionaires in America. She owned hotels, technology firms, medical investments, and half the downtown skyline. Yet very few employees had ever seen her face in person. She preferred it that way. Because when people didn't know who she was, they showed their true character. That morning, Vanessa had arrived unannounced at the company's Chicago headquarters after receiving several anonymous complaints about discrimination, arrogance, and abuse of lower-level staff. Instead of warning anyone, she decided to see things herself. Her driver opened the umbrella for her. "You sure you don't want security with you today, ma'am?" he asked. Vanessa smiled softly. "If people behave only because security is watching, then I learn nothing." She crossed the street and entered the enormous marble lobby. Inside, warm golden lights reflected off polished floors. Employees rushed toward elevators without looking at anyone around them. Vanessa approached the reception desk. A blonde receptionist glanced up briefly before returning to her phone. "Yes." Vanessa offered a polite smile. "Good morning. I'm here for the executive operations meeting on the 32nd floor." The receptionist barely looked at her. "Do you have an appointment? I believe they're expecting me." "What's your name?" "Vanessa." The woman sighed impatiently. "Last name, Carter." The receptionist paused for half a second, then smirked. "Cute." Vanessa remained calm. "I assure you, I'm expected." The receptionist typed lazily on the computer, then shrugged. "No Vanessa Carter scheduled today." "That's strange." "Well," the woman said coldly, "unless you're here to interview for housekeeping, you can't go upstairs without clearance." Vanessa blinked slowly. Around the lobby, a few nearby employees overheard the comment and quietly chuckled. The receptionist leaned back. "You can sit over there and wait if you want." She pointed toward a small row of chairs near the entrance, far from the executive elevators. Vanessa thanked her politely and sat down. 6 minutes. That was all it took. In 6 minutes, Vanessa watched everything. A janitor carrying cleaning supplies was ignored when he said good morning. A young black intern held the elevator for executives who walked in without thanking him. One elderly maintenance worker accidentally bumped into a manager and immediately apologized while the manager cursed at him loudly in front of everyone. And not one person defended the old man. Vanessa's expression slowly changed. Not anger, disappointment, because toxic leadership always spread downward like poison. Then the elevator doors opened. A nervous man in his early 50s rushed into the lobby, adjusting his tie frantically. Marcus Hill, Chief Financial Officer. The moment he saw Vanessa sitting quietly near the entrance, all color drained from his face. "Oh my God." The receptionist looked confused. Marcus hurried toward Vanessa. "Ms. Carter, you're here." The entire lobby froze. Vanessa stood calmly. "Good morning, Marcus." The receptionist suddenly sat upright. "Wait, Ms. Carter." Marcus looked horrified. Why was she sitting here? Nobody answered. Vanessa turned toward the receptionist. "What's your name?" "Kay Kelly." "How long have you worked here?" "Kelly." "Almost 3 years." Vanessa nodded slowly. "And in 3 years, has nobody explained how to treat people?" Silence. The nearby employees stopped walking. Even the security guards looked nervous now. Kelly's face turned pale. "I didn't know it was you." Vanessa's voice remained calm, almost gentle. "That's the problem." Then she turned toward Marcus. "Conference room, now." Within minutes, panic spread through the executive floor. Senior directors whispered nervously as Vanessa entered the massive boardroom overlooking the city skyline. Nobody had expected her, especially not like this. The CEO, Richard Langford, hurried in moments later, sweating despite the cold weather outside. "Vanessa," he said with forced laughter. "You should have told us you were coming." She looked at him carefully. "Why?" He hesitated. "Well, so we could prepare properly." Vanessa slowly removed her coat. "That's exactly what concerns me." The room fell silent. She placed her handbag on the table and looked around at the executives seated before her. Expensive watches, perfect suits, carefully rehearsed smiles. But she already knew what lived beneath them. "I spent 6 minutes downstairs," she said quietly. 6 minutes watching employees in my company treat people like they were beneath them. Nobody spoke. Vanessa continued. A receptionist assumed I was housekeeping. Richard forced a weak smile. Simple misunderstanding. She mocked me. His smile disappeared. Vanessa's eyes moved across the room. A manager humiliated an elderly worker in public. Employees ignored basic respect toward support staff. And everyone behaved as if power gave them permission to dehumanize people. Still silence. Then Vanessa leaned forward slightly. My father cleaned office buildings for 22 years. The room remained perfectly still. He worked night shifts so I could attend good schools. When he was tired, people ignored him. When he spoke, people interrupted him. Some executives treated him as if he were invisible. Her voice softened, but he taught me something very important. She looked directly at Richard. You can measure the soul of a company by how it treats the people who can do nothing for them. Nobody dared move. Vanessa opened a folder. I reviewed employee complaints before arriving today. Richard's forehead glistened with sweat now. Vanessa, perhaps we should discuss this privately. No, her voice cut through the room like glass. Because the culture wasn't built privately. It was built publicly, every day. She slid several papers across the table. Over the past 18 months, 23 discrimination complaints disappeared before reaching Human Resources Review. Marcus closed his eyes. Vanessa continued. Lower-level employees reported intimidation, favoritism, racial bias, and retaliation. Richard cleared his throat. These allegations are exaggerated. Vanessa interrupted calmly. I had them independently investigated. Silence exploded across the room. One executive nearly dropped his pen. Richard stared at her. You investigated us. No, she replied. I investigated whether my company still deserves to exist under my name. The words hit harder than shouting ever could. Vanessa stood and walked slowly toward the windows overlooking the city. When I built this company, I promised myself something. She turned back toward them. We would never become the kind of corporation that humiliates ordinary people while worshipping wealth. Her eyes settled on Richard. But somewhere along the way, leadership became obsessed with profit and forgot dignity. Richard's voice weakened. We've increased revenue 30% this year. Vanessa nodded once. Yes. And lost your humanity in the process. No one breathed. Then she looked toward Marcus. Bring them in. The doors opened. 3 employees entered nervously. The elderly maintenance worker, the young black intern, and the janitor from downstairs. Confused executives exchanged looks. Vanessa gestured kindly. Please sit. The maintenance worker looked terrified. Ma'am, am I in trouble? Vanessa's expression softened immediately. No, sir. You are the only reason this company still has hope. The old man nearly cried. Richard shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa faced the room again. This man has worked here 11 years. She looked at the maintenance worker. What's your name? Walter. Mr. Walter Green has never once received recognition from this executive board. Walter lowered his eyes shyly. Vanessa continued. But do you know what I learned this morning? Nobody answered. He knows every employee's birthday in the maintenance department. Several executives looked stunned. Vanessa smiled faintly. When the cafeteria worker's husband died last year, Walter organized donations for her family. Walter looked embarrassed. It wasn't much. Vanessa's voice became emotional. It was humanity. The room remained silent. She then turned toward the young intern. What's your name? Devin. You held the elevator for executives this morning. Yes, ma'am. Did any of them thank you? He hesitated. No. Vanessa looked slowly around the room. Do you understand what kind of culture ignores basic human decency? Nobody could meet her eyes now. Then she faced the janitor. And you, Luis, ma'am. Vanessa smiled warmly. Luis has worked night shifts for 4 years while taking care of his disabled mother. Several executives looked shocked again. How do you know that? Richard asked quietly. Vanessa answered without looking at him. Because unlike leadership in this building, I read employee files. The silence became unbearable. Then Vanessa walked back to the head of the table. This company generated billions because people like Walter, Devin, and Luis sacrificed for it every day. Her voice hardened. Yet leadership created a system where they are treated as invisible. Richard finally spoke carefully. What exactly are you proposing? Vanessa looked directly at him. Not proposing. She opened another folder. Effective immediately, Richard Langford is terminated as CEO of Carter Global Holdings. The room erupted. What? You can't. This is insane. Vanessa raised one hand. Instant silence. She continued calmly. 3 senior executives involved in suppressing discrimination complaints are also terminated. Marcus handed envelopes across the table. Faces turned white. Richard stood abruptly. You're destroying the company over feelings. Vanessa's eyes sharpened. No, I'm saving it from men like you. He laughed bitterly. You think kindness runs billion-dollar corporations? Vanessa stepped closer. No, respect does. Richard grabbed his papers furiously. You'll regret this. Vanessa's expression never changed. The moment I would regret this is the moment I become you. Security quietly appeared near the doorway. Richard realized it was over. One by one, the fired executives left the boardroom in stunned silence. When the doors finally closed, the room felt different. Lighter. Vanessa sat down slowly. Then she looked at the remaining leadership team. Now, she said quietly, we begin rebuilding. For the next 2 hours, Vanessa listened more than she spoke. Not to executives, to employees, administrative assistants, security guards, maintenance staff, interns, receptionists, people nobody important usually listened to. Some cried while speaking, others admitted they had been afraid for years. One woman revealed she had considered quitting after repeated humiliation from management. Another confessed he stopped reporting discrimination because complaints simply vanished. Vanessa took notes personally. Every word mattered to her. By late afternoon, the atmosphere inside the company had transformed completely. Fear was slowly being replaced by something unfamiliar. Hope. As employees gathered in the main atrium, whispers spread quickly. The owner fired the executives. She sat downstairs like a normal person. She defended the maintenance worker. People stared as Vanessa stepped onto the small stage near the lobby fountain. No teleprompter, no prepared speech, just honesty. She looked out at hundreds of employees. When I was 14, she began softly, my father brought me to clean offices with him during summer break. The room became quiet instantly. I remember watching businessmen walk past him as if he didn't exist. Her voice remained steady. One night, I asked him if it hurt. Employees listened carefully. Vanessa smiled faintly at the memory. He told me something I never forgot. She paused. He said, never hate people who look down on you. Pity them, because money without kindness is the poorest life of all. Several employees wiped tears from their eyes. Vanessa continued, I built this company to prove success and compassion can exist together. Her gaze moved across the crowd. And starting today, they will. Applause slowly began, then grew louder, and louder, until the entire atrium thundered with emotion. But Vanessa raised her hand gently. One more thing. The room quieted again. She turned toward the reception desk. Kelly stood there trembling. Vanessa looked at her calmly. You embarrassed me this morning. Kelly's eyes filled with tears. Yes, ma'am, I'm so sorry. Vanessa nodded slowly. I believe you are. The room held its breath. Then Vanessa said something nobody expected. You're not fired. Kelly stared at her in shock. But you will attend leadership and empathy training personally supervised by me. Kelly began crying openly now. Thank you. Vanessa's voice remained firm. Do not thank me yet. Earn the second chance. Kelly nodded repeatedly. Vanessa then looked across the company lobby one final time. A workplace should never become a place where human beings lose their dignity. Her eyes glistened slightly now. No title makes someone better than another person. Not janitor, not executive, not billionaire. Complete silence filled the building. Then Vanessa smiled softly. We all enter this world the same way. And we all leave it the same way. A deep emotional stillness settled over everyone listening. The kind that changes people. Not because they were afraid, but because they finally remembered what respect looked like. Outside, the rain had stopped. Golden sunlight poured through the glass walls of the lobby as employees stood together, executives beside janitors, assistants beside managers. For the first time in years, the building no longer felt cold. And as Vanessa Carter quietly walked through the lobby, people no longer saw a billionaire. They saw a human being. The kind powerful enough to change an entire company. In 6 minutes,